Today, we are going to look at some words people have difficulty pronouncing, but they're actually quite easy to do. So the words we're going to look at today are answer, island, bought, Wednesday, honest, angry, hungry, clothes, February, and climb. And we might look at a couple bonus words after. So let's get to it and learn how to actually pronounce these words. Here is a word that it's so easy to mispronounce. The word is answer. Answer is a very, very common English word. We use it in everyday English. So why do people make a mistake with this word? Well, it's because of the spelling. The W here tricks people. So people see the W and they pronounce it like answer. Oh, I answered the question. Well, the W is actually silent. You do not pronounce the W. So the correct pronunciation is very simple. Answer. What is the answer? So just forget the W and then you'll be able to pronounce this correctly. Answer. So let's practice this in some sentences. So repeat after me. Let's answer the question. And notice I'm saying the first part louder. Let's answer the question. So I'm putting more stress on the first part of this. Answer. What's your answer? Teachers love to ask these types of questions. What's the answer? So you can repeat after me. Answer. What's the answer? And we also use this when we're talking about telephones. So when the telephone is ringing, you might ask somebody to answer the phone. So you see, it's a very easy pronunciation. As long as you remember, don't pronounce the W. The next word that is very hard for people to pronounce is the word bought. So bought is a very common word in English. It's the past tense of the word buy. So if I'm talking about now, I use buy. But if I'm talking about the past, like last week, last month, last year, I would use bought. Now, the reason people have trouble with this word is, again, because of the weird spelling. This GH confuses people a lot. So the UGH, people see that and they try to pronounce it. This is actually silent. So you do not have to pronounce the U, the G, or the H. Ignore that. So sometimes I've heard students say bothed. I bothed it. And the mistake they're making is they're trying to pronounce these silent sounds. You don't have to pronounce them. Just think of the word bought. B-O-T. So this is not the spelling, but this is how we pronounce it. If you can say the word robot, bought, it's the same pronunciation. So let's practice this word. I bought the book. I bought the book. Who bought that? Who bought that? And she bought a cat. She bought a cat. So when you're practicing pronunciation of words, it's always good to say the word on its own, but then to try it in a sentence, because when you say a word in a sentence, it can be a little bit more difficult to say it. So it's good practice. So very simple tip, just don't pronounce the UGH. Just say bought. I've had many students who have made a mistake with this word. The word is island. Island. So what do some students say by mistake? Well, I commonly hear Iceland or Island. Island, Iceland. The issue many learners have with this word is that they pronounce the S. This S is silent. You do not need to pronounce the S in island. So if we remove the S, the pronunciation is more like island, the island. So you can say island, island, depending on your accent. The most important thing is to get rid of the S pronunciation. So let's do this together. Let's say some sentences. I want to travel to an island. Notice there's no S sound. I want to travel to an island. It's a beautiful island. Toronto Island is a great place for biking. So I'm from Toronto. Toronto has an island. It has a few islands, and the islands of Toronto are great places for nature, picnics, and biking. The next word that many people have trouble pronouncing is the word honest. So honest is difficult because of this H. The H is silent. We do not pronounce the H. So instead we actually say honest. So get rid of the H and you can pronounce this word correctly. So listen carefully. I honestly believe this. What I hear a lot of people say is honestly. They have that H sound, but you do not need an H sound when you say the word honest. The H is silent. We do not say the H. He is honest. Honest. That's my honest answer. So try to say this word, and it might be hard because a lot of people really, really want to say the H. They really want to say honestly speaking, but no H. Just start with the O. Honest. The next two words learners often make mistakes with, and sometimes they confuse the pronunciation because these words sound somewhat similar. The words are angry and hungry. So what are some of the mistakes I hear people make with these words? Well, sometimes with angry, which means to be mad, sometimes people will add an H sound. So they'll say hungry. Hungry. I'm so hungry right now. So there is a word in English, hangry, which means hangry, or it means angry plus hungry when you're mad because you're hungry. But we won't talk about that one today. For now, we're just going to focus on angry, meaning mad, and hungry, meaning you want to eat. So as I mentioned, people sometimes add an H to angry. And then with the word hungry, they sometimes forget the H. There's also a difference in the vowel sounds here. So listen carefully. Angry. Notice my mouth really gets big. Angry. And hungry. So let's practice the correct pronunciation. I made a mistake here. I angry. What did I forget? I'm. So angry. There's no H. Angry. And if you really have a hard time saying angry, and you notice you make mistakes with this a lot, an alternative is just don't use it. Use the word mad. Mad is easier to pronounce and it has the same meaning. I'm so mad. I'm so angry. Mad is easier to pronounce. Now, for the word hungry, you really need that sound, that H sound. So there should be a lot of air at the beginning of this word. Hungry. So the main thing here, remember to pronounce the H. Honest, there's no H sound. Hungry, there is an H sound. So let's practice these words. I'm angry. He's angry. Are you hungry? I'm hungry. The next word is, this one actually is a little bit more challenging. The word is close. So this is a hard word to pronounce because of the TH and there's a Z sound at the end. So the spelling is a little bit different than the actual pronunciation because again, the S sounds like a Z or a Z if you're in the US. So what I often hear people do is they break up the word and they say clothes, clothes. I like your clothes. So that's one mistake I hear. So it's one syllable. And again, there's a Z at the end. Close. I like to do this trick because I think that it can actually help your pronunciation. So you start at the top with a K sound. Close. And I'm even going to get rid of this H. The close. I think that can help you with your pronunciation for this word. Where are the clothes? Did you put the clothes in the bag? I like your clothes. So again, this is a hard word, but it's possible to do, especially if you remember that there is a Z at the end. So the next word is a very important word because it's one of the days of the week. The word is Wednesday. It's also the name of a character in the Addams Family. So Wednesday, it's a common mistake learners might make. They might actually pronounce it as Wednesday. So they might give it 3 syllables, Wednesday, instead of 2, Wednesday. So the reason this is hard is because of this D. A lot of people want to say the D, Wednesday, but you don't have to say the D. You can just say, without the D, Wednesday. Wednesday. So try that. Wednesday. I work on Wednesday. I'm busy on Wednesday. It's Wednesday. So again, very simple. Once you know to get rid of the D, it's a very easy word to pronounce. The next word is also important because it's one of the months in the year. And it is the word February. February is difficult. Many people make mistakes because of this R. They'll say February. But the R is silent. You do not need to say the R. So instead you can pronounce it February. February. Forget the R. February is a cold month. So again, I am not pronouncing the R. February. Her birthday is in February. So once you know you don't need to pronounce the R, this word becomes a lot easier to pronounce. The last word I want to teach you is the word climb. So we use climb a lot because we climb the stairs. People like to go climbing, like mountain climbing, or there's different ways to use this word. A common mistake is that people might pronounce the B at the end. The B is silent. So this is actually a very easy word to pronounce as long as you remember no B. So you can pronounce it climb. I climbed the CN Tower. I climbed a tower in Paris. I climbed the Eiffel Tower. So that's how you would use that. So again, here's the word without the B. That's how you pronounce it. Climb. This can be still a little bit difficult because the CL together can be hard for some people learning English. So if you're having trouble with the CL, slow it down and just start with a K, L, climb. Sometimes just going slow can help with the pronunciation. So let's look at some sentences. I like climbing. She climbs mountains. I get tired climbing the stairs. So again, with the B, you just don't pronounce it. And when you remove the B, you'll see that this is actually quite an easy word to pronounce. Now, there are some other words that are like the word climb, where they end with an MB. So numb is an example, and dumb is an example. So again, just don't pronounce the B for these words. Numb, dumb, climb. When you see MB together, the B is usually silent. So we've covered some different words that are actually quite easy to pronounce as long as you realize which sounds are silent. So I hope that you've learned something today, and I hope that you try to use these correct pronunciations in your everyday English. We use these words a lot, so this can be really helpful for improving your conversation. So thank you so much for watching today. It's always good to practice what you learned, so you can visit us at www.engvid.com and there take a quiz on the words we covered today. And also don't forget to subscribe to my channel. We have a lot of other videos on pronunciation and other different English topics. So thanks so much for watching, and until next time, take care.